Hey guys, Jamstrap here. Welcome back to another video. So in this one, I'm going to be going through how you guys would start and structure your first army for Warhammer 40,000. So this is obviously going to be aimed at beginners. This was actually sent in by one of my viewers. He's got a couple of boxes over the Christmas period and he wanted to know how he would go about structuring his Space Marine army. So I'm going to be mainly focusing on Space Marines in my examples, but this can go towards any army. I'll give some examples for how you'd structure the different ones as well. But yeah, so I'm going to get straight into the rule book here because this will tell us how to do it. And yeah, let's get cracking. Alright, so if you have the rule book or you're planning on getting it at some point, so you want to turn to page 242 and 243. Now this will give you how you would structure your army. So, to start with, the reason why you would put your models in certain structures, which are called detachments, is because you get special command points and that, which is kind of a currency that's used to buy special abilities and that. But anyway, so to start off with, if your army is battle forged, which means they're all from the same army, so they're all Space Marines, they're all Genestealer Cult, they're all Tyranids, whatever. You start with 3 command points, regardless of what detachment you take. Then, if you get another detachment, it can add on points. But anyway, this is probably getting a bit too complicated for complete beginners. So let's have a look at these detachments here. So as you can see, the ones in red are the parts that you have to have. So you see that says HQ, which would be a leader. You have to have at least 1. But you can have up to 2 for a patrol detachment, and you have to have at least 1 troops. But it says 1 to 3, so obviously must have 1, but you can have up to 3. But anyway, so patrol detachment, you don't get anything special for that. That's basically if you've maybe bought a star collecting box and you just want to kind of try the game out or something like that. You know, you just use that. But if you begin in the game, you want to give it a proper go, the core of your army has to be, doesn't have to be, but if you're a beginner, I'd recommend it, be a battalion detachment. If you can fill like it 2 HQs, 3 troops, you'll get 3 command points as well, and this is a really good beginning to any army. Okay, so to explain this, so here we go. You have to have 2 leaders or HQ kind of people, or you can get up to 3. You need 3 units of troops. You can go up to 6, and then you can add any of these in here if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of how I would go about filling in the mandatory slots, and then how I would move on from there, get you guys a decent army to start with, and just show you what's necessary for your army. Okay, like I said before, I'm going to be using Primaris Space Marines as my main examples, but I'll try to throw in examples of other armies just in case. But most armies kind of want to follow the same pattern, depending on your skill level or what you're into. So first things first, with any army, the first HQ or leader you want to get is kind of your generic boss leader kind of guy. He's the guy that's going to be quite tough to kill, pretty decent in combat, and pretty good at shooting. He's your all-rounder. Most of the time he'll buff your units. So in this case, it's a Primaris captain in Gravis armor, but you can use obviously a normal captain or anything like that. Or if you're an orc player, you would want a war boss, or if you're a Genestealer Cult player, you want like a Primus or something like that. But yeah, so when you're starting, first thing you want to get is your all-rounder, jack of all trades, boss dude, which would be this one. In this case, a Space Marine captain or a Wolf Lord, whatever the equivalent is. Every army has the jack of trades captain kind of dude. So that's your one, because obviously if you want 2 HQs, I'd start off with this one. This is your most important one. Obviously, like I said, depends on your skill level and what you're trying to do. Okay, so the next kind of leader you get might be a slightly watered down version of what the captain does. He'll have some buffing abilities, and you can either kit them out for a bit more combat or a bit more shooting, and he'll support your troops or your units in that specific area. So in this case, for Primaris Marines, you want your lieutenant. So obviously you get one of your lieutenant guys. If you want him for shooting, you keep him out for that. So my recommendation would be get a lieutenant as your second dude. So there you go, you got your 2 HQ choices. But I'm going to throw a third one in there as a kind of a slightly more advanced choice. So obviously if you're in the beginning, most people recommend don't worry about the psychic phase too much, because it adds an extra step and layer to the game, more rules and everything. But once you're competent with that, the core gameplay, you definitely want to get some sort of psychic unit, because if you don't, you're missing out on a complete phase of the game. Now, not all armies have psychers, but most of them have some sort of unit that can do something during the psychic phase, like either cancel out another player's psychic powers or whatever it is. So obviously, once again, as a primary space marine, you want a librarian. So now you've got these guys as your main buffing combat dudes, and then you got somebody that can actually do something in the psychic phase. This would bring you up to 3 HQ choices, and that's pretty much fills out your battalion detachment right there. Like I said, Psyker is more along the lines of if you're comfortable with more rules, or if you're a bit high level up, because it just adds more to the game. But definitely a great part. It increases a lot of like support you can do for your team. Like for example, if you're using a playcaster for Death Guard, it can make your guys pretty much indestructible. They're really hard to kill. Or you can do some damage to people. There's always something to do that helps your guys out quite a lot. So it's definitely important to try and get involved in the psychic phase. But anyway, to recap for the HQ, start off with your generic all-rounder kind of guy. Maybe move on to like somebody a bit more watered down, a bit of a cheaper guy. So that fills your slot out. Depending on what army you've got, obviously it's completely different. And then once you're comfortable, get a librarian or anything that can do anything in the psychic phase. Okay, so that's your HQ sorted out. So the next thing you have to have for a good core of any army is you want 3 units of troops. And obviously depending on your army, depends on how many you're going to have. So if you have these Primaris dudes, a lot of people like to keep it bog standard, go with your basic 5 guys of intercessors or whatever you want to use. So obviously I've got intercessors here. That's what I'd be using. So a lot of people keep them in 5s, but obviously you can do them in 10s. You can do 3 lots of 10 or 3 lots of 5, whatever you want to do, or mix it up. Whereas if you're playing orcs and you got boys, then you probably want like 20 or 30 guys in one unit. So depending on that, but like I said, I'm using Primaris guys here for an example, and I would personally probably go for about 5 in each one. If you want to, so you don't want to fill your entire army out only on troops. So if you're trying to make 1,000 or 1,500 point army, depending on what you want to do, try keep it standard. So like I said, just chuck in about 15 of these guys. So there, you would have about 15 guys. Obviously this is starting off with Primaris, but like I said, any army you want to have different amounts of troop choices. But with these, you got 15 guys. There's not much money to get involved with it. You got a decent amount of bodies on the floor. So you got some guys that can run forwards, some guys can keep objectives, some guys can do whatever you want to do. There's a pretty good body count here to start the game. Obviously, if you really love intercessors or whatever troop you want to choose, add more of them. Just do 10s, do 20s, do whatever you want to do, depending on what you're doing. But like I said, my recommendation, starting off as a beginner, just do about 15. Maybe have one unit, do 5-5, and then maybe do one unit with 10. Okay, so after that, the next choice I'd probably go up to would be either heavy support or elites. But let's go straight to elites quickly. Okay, so to be honest, once you've got your HQ characters and your 3 troops down, unless you're a very competitive person, which if you're watching this video, you're probably not going to be, not now anyway, you're pretty much set from there. You got your mandatory dudes, then you can just start buying units and stuff that you find quite fun, because I mean, rule of cool and buying things and playing things that you enjoy is the most important. But I'm going to go next onto elites. So now obviously this is very, very different for every army, because now we're getting into more of a subjective, fun kind of point of view. But you can get units like the Dreadnought. So now you've got something, you got loads of little troop dudes on the floor, bunch of infantry running around, and now you've got a big old tanky machine. This guy, depending on what you kit him out on, you can set him up to destroy swarms of, I don't know, Tyranids or whatever you want. He can destroy loads of infantry, or you can set him up with this plasma cannon thing, I don't remember what it's called now, and he can destroy tanks and go for vehicles. So this gives you a bit more of a heavy fire support and a bit more of a target for your enemies as well, I guess. So he'll take some of the tension away from your troops, and he'll do a lot of damage, take a lot of wounds, and I'll definitely go for a Dreadnought next, because one, super badass, and secondly, he does a lot of stuff that your infantry troop guys can't do. Now, on a similar thing, you can get some aggressors, which obviously, if you're playing orcs, you maybe want to get some knobs or just some like heavy infantry basically. So these guys, tougher to kill, and they pump out a lot of damage. These are mainly used for taking down massive groups, that they can either build with flamers or boltstorm gauntlets, I believe. Yeah, so you want something like that, but obviously you get different stuff. If you're Space Wolves, you can get some Wolfen. You know, it's Reavers for the thing, Primaris Marine, sorry. You know, whatever you like want to do, because I think the elite list is probably one of the most cool ones. You get loads of badass units that can do whatever you want. I think if once you've played a couple of games and you kind of know what's your weak spots or your strong points, you just keep on buying more stuff. But definitely get some sort of heavy vehicle kind of thing like this, you know, like a Death Dread or anything like that, something that will distract your opponent, something that can handle infantry or vehicles, anything like that. Just something a bit different. Also, it breaks up the symmetry of your army. Just looks a bit cool. So the only reason why I wouldn't go for units like Reavers and stuff straight away, unless you really want to, because that's just more infantry. They kind of do the same thing as your troops. They've got their own special abilities, but they're shooting bolt guns, and like I say, you want something slightly different for your elites. They can do different tasks. Yeah, just get things that your troops normally couldn't do. Chuck that in there, and obviously whatever you think is cool. Okay, so like I said before, in elites do a lot of things that your troops can't do, and they just probably where some of the coolest units in most armies lie. But the next, I think personally, for starting an army, next best thing to do after you've got your basics going is move on to your heavy support. Now these tend to be your heavy firepower kind of dudes. These guys will take out monstrous creatures, your heavy vehicles, everything like that. So these guys are going to take out the big targets. If somebody's got a tank flying around, anything like that, some bosses. So yeah, no, sorry about that, guys. I dropped my camera, but anyway, yeah. So Primaris dudes, Hellblasters. You can kit them up in various different ways. You can overcharge them, so you can either shoot lower power rounds or higher power rounds, depending on how desperately you need to kill your target. Then, of course, you got these units, Eliminators as well, which I think these are probably the two most regularly available Primaris units, because obviously they've been in the various boxes. So yeah, there you've got a lot of character killing and tank killing potential. Obviously all of this is very subjective, but like I said, I would go for heavy support next, because that can take out a lot of your higher danger kind of things, like targets that you're quite afraid of. Just set these bad boys up, blast them off the table. Okay, so another one of the next things I'll do is I'll move on to vehicles. So once again, this also gives you a lot of extra utility and potential that your basic troop infantry kind of guys can do. if you go for tanks, they can carry your troops across the field, and they tend to have quite a lot of heavy firepower as well. So for example, yeah, I've got the repulsor. This can fit 10 infantry in there, so if you got like a group of 10 guys with maybe a power fist or something like that, throw them in here, you can transport them across the table. And if you got these guns on you can just blast infantry away, or you can get like little las guns on there or whatever, depending on your army. Yeah, get some tanks, get some heavy vehicles. And this also counts for flyers, so if you're like an orc, you want to duck a jet or something like that. That just adds a bit more spice to your, so you don't just have foot soldiers running across the board. Once again, completely subjective depending on what you want to play, but there's just my suggestions, mainly on primaries as well. After you got your base of, because one of the most important things in 40k right now is just have a lot of bodies on the floor, a lot of people grabbing objectives, going everywhere, a lot of target saturation, so your opponent doesn't know where he wants to go. So obviously if you got this on the table, this is going to draw a lot of attention while the other troops can go do what they want to do. And by the way, if you guys want to see how I kit batch this, I've got a video on that as well. But yeah, for this section, definitely go for vehicles, tanks, flyers, stuff like that. I'll add fast attack in here as well, like Space Marine bikes and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any to showcase right now, so I won't go too in depth on fast attack because it's not really been a section of the game I've really utilized too much. But yeah, like I say, vehicles, transports, heavy support, whatever. Get some tanks, airplanes, if that's your kind of thing. And yeah, this is probably one of the more higher up steps. I don't think most people are going to go into the game buying a tank, unless that's what you're into. And also, the guy that sent in the message about how to structure stuff, he did ask me about like transports and stuff like that. And if you might have seen in the rule book, you can have one transport for like each unit. So if you got 3 groups of troops, you can have 3 transports, unless that's been changed recently, because I haven't really played much this year, so we'll see if that's still the same. But yeah, you can have quite a lot of transports, probably more than you'd want to have anyway. But yeah, let's cut quickly and I'll summarize. So yeah, anyway, like I was saying before at the beginning of the video, this isn't about being super competitive and building the best army list ever. It's more about where you're going to start if you're just getting into the game. And like I said before, apart from the mandatory things to make a battalion, which is your 2 HQ choices and 3 troops, you can pretty much do what you want. Like I said, I'd obviously get my 2 guys, get my 3 lots of troops, and from there just start getting stuff that tickles my fancy, really. Like I said, I'll move on to elites first, because you get some super badass units like Terminators, Dreadnoughts, Death Dreads, Gene Stealers, all that kind of stuff, and they tend to be extremely strong, and they're just units that most people really like. They look really cool. So I'd move on to them, get a couple elites, whatever I think looks cool, and then obviously you want to get some stuff that can maybe deal with stronger targets, because your troops and that aren't going to be doing that. Some of your elites can, obviously, but get some heavy support, get some hell blasters, all that stuff that can take out tanks, and if people have that. And then maybe decide on some flyers, vehicles, tanks, if that's your kind of thing. If it's not, don't get it. And obviously, if you're feeling confident or you have a couple games, get a psycho, something that can do something in the psychic phase. Try and take advantage of every single phase there is in the game, and then you'll be alright. So obviously, like, this is very generic video. Obviously, if you guys want me to do a video for specific armies, let me know and I'll try and get around to that. I'm not the most competitive or greatest player in the world, but I'll try my best to give you guys a bit of an idea of where you should start on an army. So yeah, comment below for that, or if you have any other suggestions for new people, if you're a slightly more advanced player, comment below and tell other people what they should maybe get for certain armies, or beginning any army really. Like and comment if you want to, and check out my channel, because I release hobby content similar to this every single week. And yeah, see you in the next one, guys. Bye bye.